Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Natasha Kipton and I am Digital Futures Project Coordinator at Manchester Digital. Before we start, I'd like to give you a bit of background as to what those things mean. For those who don't know us, Manchester Digital are the region's independent trade body for digital and technology businesses. We exist to support our member businesses and we currently represent over 500 companies. One of the key problems our members face is recruiting tech talent that they need. In 2019, our skills audit found that a third of businesses were unable to recruit for advertised roles. This was attributed to a limited talent pool where companies are forced to inflate salaries or recruit from outside the region. So what our region needs is a much stronger talent pipeline and to bridge the digital skills gap, which you may have heard about already. For us at Manchester Digital, we work at the future talent end of the pipeline, and for many of you joining us today, that will mean your students. So that's why we launched Digital Futures, which is currently backed by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Through Digital Futures, we work to inspire and empower students to consider careers in our sector, and we also support teachers, careers leads, and VCS organisations with employer encounters and industry-led CPD opportunities to link the curriculum to industry. Today's session is the first in our virtual webinar series. Like most organisations, including all of yours, I'm sure, once upon a time these events would have been held in person, but we switched to virtual delivery. So what that means, first of all, is that I will ask for your patience and forgiveness if anything goes wrong during this session. And secondly, this particular event is a response to the changes that education has recently undergone, and this is an attempt to bring in industry at the right point to support teachers. In this session, we'll be looking at technology itself, in particular Microsoft Teams, and we'll be touching on the pedagogical aspect of virtual learning through our Agile talk, but in the future, we'll be looking further at pedagogy. So today, we'll be starting off with top tech tips for teachers, a talk from Mark Armstrong from inTec. And following that, we'll have a lightning talk on the Agile Principles by Kevin Murray and Arsina Besma from Zühlke. For those of you who teach computing or computer science, you may be familiar with Agile. It may also be something that is brand new to you. Either way, we hope this introduction to Agile will be interesting and useful. Before we start, I'd also just like to let you know that this session will be recorded and shared afterwards. So that means that you don't have to scribble everything down if you don't want to. And secondly, you can ask questions in the chat box. So I'd really encourage you to do this throughout today's session. After each talk, we're going to pause for a question and answer. After today's session, we will then move on to short virtual networking, and you can join that on the left-hand side again on the networking panel. You'll get 30 seconds to 3 minutes with a random person from today's event. So that could be another teacher, someone from another organisation, or it could be one of our speakers. It's the luck of the draw, and you can move through several sessions of that networking. So that is all about today's event and what we'll be covering. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to Mark Armstrong from inTec, who's going to talk to us about Microsoft Teams.
Perfect. Thanks, Natasha. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. My name is Mark Armstrong. I'm a technology consultant for inTec Business Solutions. And what we do is essentially we help organizations make the most of technology. So we work with organizations, kind of get an understanding of what they do and how they do it, and look to recommend technology-focused solutions that will help them do that more efficiently or quicker or cheaper or better or whatever that may look like. And I specialize particularly in collaboration. So a lot of the work that I do is around implementing and onboarding Microsoft Teams and various other collaboration solutions into a whole range of organizations, from enterprise businesses through to schools, colleges, charities, and kind of everything in between. So today, the focus is going to be on Microsoft Teams, specifically the education features of Microsoft Teams. So without further ado, I'll just share my screen. So keep fingers crossed that this doesn't crash everything. No, we look all right. Okay. So I'm going to be flicking around multiple browsers, but hopefully I'll not get it too wrong. So we'll start where everyone may well be starting right now, which is office.com. So Teams is a Microsoft product, one of a suite, and if you ever want to find any of your sort of stuff, wherever you may be, then office.com is a great place to go, because from here I can access everything that lives within my Microsoft world, whether that be my email, my files, my various sort of word processor, Excel, all the rest of it. But specifically today we're focusing on Teams. So I can click the Teams icon and I'm straight in. Teams was designed specifically as a way for people to collaborate in a more modern fashion. Typically, across any sort of organization, whether that be a business, a school, or anything, primary form of communication was often email. But email as a comms tool is a pretty flawed thing in the sense that it's closed. It's usually super formal. It's not familiar to a lot of people sort of coming into the workforce now and students and things like that. It's very unlike kind of how people communicate with regards to instant messaging. And as a collaboration tool, it can be pretty restrictive. So if I'm a student and I want to sort of ask my teacher a question on email, well, maybe I can do, and I can send them an email and hopefully I'll get a response. But only I ever get that response. And it might be that there's 10, 15, 20 students in the class for whom that answer would have been useful, but I didn't add them to that email. I just emailed it myself. So only I got the response. It might be that other people are thinking the same thing as me, and before that teacher knows it, they've got 20 of exactly the same question coming through and 20 different emails that they've got to respond to. Now, the alternative way would be for me to send that question, but maybe CC in all my classmates on the assumption that maybe they'll be interested. And suddenly now I've created an email group with maybe 30 people in it, of which only 3 people are actually interested, but the rest have kind of got these messages now forced upon them because there's no other way of getting out of it. So what Teams allows me to do is communicate with my students or communicate with my teacher, but have everybody else involved in that conversation. So now as a student, if I ask my teacher a question in Teams, I can direct it at the teacher so that they'll get a notification pop up, and so they'll know that I've asked that question. But when that teacher responds, not only do I get the response, but everybody else has access to that and can see that. Now, that doesn't mean that their computer is going to ping or they're going to get a notification because I haven't included them in it, but they will have access to it. So if they see that answer and think, oh, that's interesting, I didn't think of asking that question, but I'm glad I've seen it, it's useful, then great. Or it might be that they just have a similar question in 3 months' time, and maybe they search up here first and foremost to do a keyword search, and that Q&A that I had with my teacher 3 months ago pops up. And so they get the answer that way. So purely as a thing for communication, we find it's a really effective way of drawing people into conversations more, encouraging collaboration, both kind of active, where you're directly messaging at people, and passive, where you may be not part of an initial conversation, but then you suddenly sort of move into it because it's interesting for you. And it's a messaging tool that's much more familiar to people nowadays, in the sense that, you know, people have kind of got used to how to communicate via things like WhatsApp and text and Instagram and the like. And Teams offers kind of a flavor of that, I guess, but within a very much a managed school setting. So here I am in Microsoft Teams, and I'm signed in as a teacher. So there's a few differences with regards to Teams from an education standpoint as opposed to Teams from a corporate standpoint, but fundamentally they're very similar. The differences are that as within the education setting, I get a few more extra bells and whistles that I can utilize. So if we look at what all this means, if I can run through all these tabs firstly. So if I look at my activity tab, what this is basically showing me everything that's happened across the school that is directly related to me. And by that, I mean it's directly related to me because either someone's sent a message to me and mentioned me directly in Teams, or they've replied to a conversation I'm part of, or they've messaged in a group that I'm following, or something along those lines. So the first place that people should be going on a day-to-day basis is here. This is kind of like what your inbox is from an email perspective. So I can go through here, and if I just want to reply to anybody's conversation, I don't have to flick away from here and go and find it. The conversations, wherever they may be taking place, are accessible here in this window. So here, Arden's replied to me, and I can immediately then reply to him. Go on, that's great. And that's done. And what you'll notice is that all conversations in Teams are threaded. So what that means is that they're always, as long as I remember to click reply, then this conversation will always exist as in its one form. So one of the frustrations that I have with something like WhatsApp as a communication tool is that it doesn't do this. So if I'm in a group with lots of other people and 5 people are talking about one thing and 3 are talking about something else, it can make no sense, because unless I'm following that live, the response here might have no relation to the response directly below it, because that might be a response to something up here. So Teams always connects these conversations up so I can see what I've got. And equally, Teams isn't just a communication tool. It's far more than that. It's a collaboration tool. And one of the ways that we can collaborate is on files. So you'll notice here that this conversation was started because of this Excel files, monthly research budget file that I've inserted into the conversation. So because I've done that, anyone can access this file at any time just by clicking on the file itself. So they can follow the conversation, and then they can click into the file, and without having to do a thing, they can then immediately start editing this file in real time, of course. And off we go. We'll cancel that. Edit something I shouldn't have. One of the main features that I think is really useful within Teams as well is, because these files are all in the cloud, that confers some features. Firstly, it means that I can edit them and access them from anything. In this case, I'm accessing it from a web browser, but I could access it from the Teams desktop application. I could access it from any web browser, so whether I'm using a Mac, a PC, a tablet, whatever else, I can get into Teams and I can do all the same thing. So I've always got access to my stuff, even if it's just on a phone. As well as that, because this is in the cloud, multiple people can access this file at once. So I can go back to this conversation, and there is the conversation that I've been having. So just click that conversation button here, and it brings that back. And if I want to then start working with Arden on this file, I could message and say, look, can you help me with this now? Arden can come in. I'll see that he's in the file because his initials will pop up here. And as he edits, I will see those edits in real time. So when we look at that from an education standpoint, it means that if you've got a group of students maybe working on a project together, their ability to do that is much easier, because they can start creating a PowerPoint deck or a Word presentation or whatever it may be. They can be working on that all at once, simultaneously, collaboratively, and see what each other's doing in real time, irrespective of what device they're using or where they happen to be when they're doing this. It also means that if a student is struggling with a particular assignment, then as a teacher, you can go into that assignment as they're editing it and just say, oh, well, maybe you want to have a look at this, or I'm not too sure about the structure of this paragraph, or whatever it may be. And you can do that in real time, minimal effort, super, super fast. So I'll close that file down. As well as that, obviously I can open up these files I'll just go back to it quickly. Could open up these files directly in Teams and pretty much do whatever I like to them from here. But equally, if I decide that I can't, there's a bit of functionality that doesn't exist within kind of the web version of the app, then I can open any file I want in the desktop app, and it will open that up in full fat Excel or Word or whatever it may be, and I can edit it from there as well if I prefer. So I can run through my activity. If I want, I can filter this as well. So I could filter it by anything I like, by either a keyword, or I could filter it by app mentions or anything like that. So if I say, well, I just want to see the stuff where people have replied to a comment that I put, then I can do that, and I can run through all these. Equally, if I see a message and I kind of think, oh, I'm not going to respond to that just yet, then I can mark it as unread, and I can come back to that later on. So that's activity. The next phase is chat. So although one of the main points of Teams is that you try and have as much of your conversations in Teams itself, obviously sometimes you're not going to want to do that. for whatever reason. So chat exists as a way to do private messaging between single parties or groups of people as well. So if I want to create a new chat, just click the new chat button here, and then I type in the name of the person or persons I want to speak to, and they'll just pop up. So if I want to speak to Alan, but maybe I want to speak to several people, so I can, and I can create a little group. So this could be for anything, but I'm just going to say we'll just call this lunch club. And it might be that I just want to see what these two colleagues of mine are doing for lunch today. Not really relevant at the moment, because I imagine they're having something local. I don't think they'll be going to many cafes at the moment. But if they did, as and when that's an option, then we can do stuff like this in here. And I can use this to talk to anybody across the school. One of the things you can do if you want is you can turn off the ability to have chat like this for the student body. So you can have this as just for teachers, so the students can't be using this to, do as they will from a conversation perspective. From here, if I want to then call or set up a video call with the people in my group, or just with the one person, if it wasn't a group, then I can just click these buttons up here and immediately start a conversation or a video call with them. So now let's look at Teams. So Teams is my main hub. So from here, I'm a member of several teams, and I can click into these to work from them. If I want to create a new team, I can do, and we'll run through that in a bit. But from here, I've got various teams that I'm a member of. So I'm a member of several classes, so physical science and algebra. I'm also a member of the science teachers group, and a member of various other sort of staff and student sites. There are 4 types of teams that you can essentially have. You've got a class team, and that is one which all your students will be in, and they'll all be given access to a class notebook, which I'll demonstrate in a minute, and various other features that are specific to a class environment. Now, classes can be set up automatically, so IT can set this up so that basically you will never have to set up a class. It will just be done for you automatically, based on the students, what year they're in and what group they're supposed to be in. It will automatically assign them to a specific class in Teams and set it up for you. But as well as that, you can set up your own teams for staff. So you could have, say, a departmental team, for example, that will only have the staff in it that you choose to put in it. What you can also use Teams for is kind of other things. So a lot of schools will use other teams to have things like sports teams. So you might have a team for football, and all of the students and staff that are involved in football within the school can be a member of that team. And you can do it for a lot of different things. And the whole point of this is trying to make Teams not just a purely a place where you have to work, essentially, to add an element of fun to it. We find that absolutely that encourages engagement, in the sense that students were much more likely to come into Teams and use it and utilize it outside of kind of school, not just in school hours, if there's kind of other stuff in there that's not just about, right, well, I have to, finish my maths homework or whatever that may be. So if I want to look into a particular team, I can just click on the logo and I can go in. So here I am in a in algebra class, and I know it's a class team because I've got a class notebook here. And how Teams organizes is Teams organizes into channels. So channels are kind of subsections that you create for kind of different conversation areas as much as anything. And each channel will have its own file section and can be customized in any way you want. If I want to communicate in Teams, just go to the Start a New Conversation tab, and I can just type a message. Now, here's the thing. If I just type a message like that, then no one is going to get notified that I've sent that, because I haven't deliberately called anyone out. I haven't mentioned anybody. All I've done is send a message that everyone can see, but no one will get notified on. So generally, you never want to do that. What you want to use is @mentions to get a specific person or group of people's attention, so it pops up as a notification on their screen, so that then hopefully they'll respond to you. So if I want to do that, I can just press the @ sign, and I can type in the name of whoever I want. So I'm going to pick Alex, who's a student at the school, I'm going to say, how are you getting on with the assignment? And now Alex will get a notification pop up on his screen, and he can then respond to that. As luck would have it, I'm signed in as Alex as well, so I can see that I've been mentioned, that mention has come in for me, so I can click on that, and it'll take me straight to the post that it was sent, and I can say, yeah, all good. Now, if I want to get more than one person's attention, I can do. So I can either @mention several people, or if I wanted to get the whole class's attention, then I can do an @team. So I can do @team, and if I send this message now, then everyone in this algebra team will get a notification pop up that I've sent that. What I can also do is a third way of notifying people is I can do an @channel. So with that channel, it will only notify the people who are following a particular channel. So if I'm in this group and I'm not interested in a particular part of it, a particular channel, then what I can do is I can unfollow that. So I'll still have access to it, and I'll still be able to access the messages and whatnot. But if someone mentions that particular channel that I'm not following, then I won't get it. And the advantage of @channels over @teams is it can just cut down a little bit of the noise. So as well as having access to chat, I've got access to files. So from here, we've got access to the various sort of files that teachers created. There's two sort of portions to this. There's this section, which anyone has access to, and anyone can edit or add stuff to. And then there's the class materials, which only the teacher has access to. And then basically, as and when, as a teacher, you want to move class materials into this environment, you can do that at will. But none of the students will have access to that. So that's generally where you're going to maybe working on lesson plans and things like that aren't ready for sort of submission, public consumption, if you like. As I say, every file that's in Teams is accessible on anything and has all that functionality in relation to multiple people editing it and all the rest of it. The third section that I've got is class notebook. And what this gives me is a notebook that the whole class has access to. So as a teacher, I have access to everything. So I have access to the collaboration space. Collaboration space is where students and teachers can make notes on anything, and everyone can see that. Content library is, again, a place that everybody has access to, where maybe I want to put handouts and things like that. I can throw them into here. So anything that I might normally have printed out in the past, I can put into here instead, so that students can access them. Don't know what happened there. And then I can see, then I've got a teacher-only area. So this can be where I devise the content that I maybe want to put in the content library. But as it's teacher-only, again, this is kind of work in progress stuff. But as you can see, you can also use this to put any sort of things in there that basically you don't want the student body to be able to see. And then I can see every single student's private notebook. So notebooks by default are organized into 4 sections: homework, class notes, handouts, and quizzes. Students can edit those, add extra sections to that, but they can't delete these ones. And equally, as a student, the student can only see their personal notebook. They can't see anybody else's. But as a teacher, I can see everything. What I can then do is, if I want to essentially put a handout to the kids, then I can pick the handout. I can go into my content library, or indeed anywhere, but let's assume I've put it into my content library. Can click on class notebook, and I can distribute a page. So I can click distribute, and then I can say, right, I want this to go to everyone's handout section. Click distribute, and that will send it to everybody's personal notebook. So I can say, look, here's the handout for today's lesson, and then they've got their own personal version of that they can then fill in. So that may be lesson notes, whatever it is that I would have normally, as I say, handed out physically in the lesson. I can now give them that digitally, and off they go. And so the class notebook can be a really good place. It's where the students can obviously make all of their notes. If they've got a touchscreen device of whatever kind, then they can, potentially handwrite their notes as well. And as a teacher, as I say, you've got full access to everything that's in there. The next section, so we've got it here, and we've got it here is assignments. And from here, I can give assignments to my class. So this shows me all of the assignments that I've assigned and marked, and I can set an assignment for anything really. So if I want to create an assignment, I've got two options: a fully fledged assignment or a quiz. So if I click assignment, I can then enter a title, I can enter instructions. If I want, I can add a rubric. So if this was, say, an essay that I wanted them to write, then I can basically show the students what the marking criteria is for this particular essay across as many different areas as I want, so that they have then got a really clear guide as to what I'm looking for and how they're going to achieve these various levels. It also means that when it comes to marking it, I've got a criteria that I can then work to, and then a point of reference that I can go back to the students with and say, well, you were good here, this is why, this is how you can get to excellent, and whatnot. And you can reuse these rubrics. So if you have like a generic rubric that you use for essays, for example, then you can then reuse that for every assignment that you put out that's essay related, so that it's consistent. Now, the other type of assignment that you can create is a quiz. So I can create a quiz. I can do it from scratch. So if I click new form, let's say I haven't built one of these yet, then I can click new form, and that'll take me to Microsoft Forms, and I click new quiz, and I set up my quiz. So we'll just call this test, because I'm super original. And then I can have my questions. So let's say it's a maths quiz. I'll put the correct answer in there. The reason I want to have the correct answer in is because when I've done this, well, not as that as an option, I can basically get the computer to mark it for me. So I can do that. That's it done. If I now go back to here, that test is going to appear for me. There it is. I can assign that to whoever I like. I can set a due date for it. So I can set that to all students, or I could assign it to a specific student, or a group of students, or whatever I like. But I'm just going to assign that to everybody. And then if I'm the student, that's popped up. I can see that there's a new assignment coming through. If I look at my assignments, there it is. So I can see it, I can view it. One of the great things of Teams is it links into everything else really easily. So it's really easily for me to kind of get to where I need to be in a couple of clicks. I'm never having to click out of something to do something else. Most of my environment lives in here. So I can go to the test, I can fill it in. So I'll get that one wrong. I can submit. I can view my results immediately, so I can see where I went wrong. And then as teacher, I can see who's done what, and then I can grade it accordingly. So I could have a look at my tests. I can see who's done it, who hasn't, and I can then launch into these. And so let's see. So there you go. So Alex has done it. I can see where he's gone wrong. So if I want, I can then put a note in, and I could say, you know, did you consider X or whatever. And then I can close that down and sign it off, and off it goes. And these are auto marked. I can export these to Excel or whatever I like, and the student will have access to all of these assignment marks, all of these test marks forevermore. As well as that, you can set it up so that automatically every week that students' guardians, so parents and guardians, whoever's been assigned, will get an automated email from Teams every week showing the past assignments that the students had over the last week and the future stuff. So they'll be getting constantly, you know, they're going to see where that student's up to, what grades they're getting, whether they're behind on homework, all that sort of stuff. That can all be managed from in here. And that is a small snapshot of kind of what you can do within Teams and within assignments. As well as that, I've got full access to my calendar. So this is linked to my Outlook calendar, which is not too busy at the moment, I can see. Easy week. So I can set up meetings directly from in here if I want. So I can click the new meeting tab and I can set up video conferences and all that good stuff. With an additional license, I can use Teams as a fully fledged calling solution as well. So if I don't want to give out a personal number to anybody, but equally I want a number that's not just a Teams login, a Teams ID, then I can be assigned a physical number, an 0161 number or whatever that may be, that people can dial as well. And that kind of in a very oh, we've got long. I normally go way over time, but we're all right today. So I think one of the things that's really useful to look at when it comes to functionality is how all this interconnects. So let me start something. So we'll say here I've started a conversation. Don't forget the work is due tomorrow. Now what I can then do is I could then link to the file. Let's assume that there's a file that I've linked this to that I want them to look at. Oh, that's fortunate. So reminder, here's the file. Right, so let's pretend that this work is a little project that a group of 5 students are working on. So I've sent this to their channel that they're in to say, look, this isn't looking finished yet. Can you crack on? I mentioned the people that are in it, they'll get a notification and there's the file. Now as a student, I can click on that and access my file. It's definitely not finished yet. What I can then do is I can make sure that the rest of my classmates are on this as well. So again, I can mention them from here, or maybe mention a specific person and say, can you help with this? And hopefully Arden can then pop in and we can start creating this PowerPoint deck. Now, if we want, we could continue just to chat here, but that's going to get old fast. So what I can then do is for everybody that's a part of this conversation, I can now set up a meeting that we can all get involved in. To do that, I just click on this little Meet Now link. I'll block that so that it doesn't go mad because I'm already using my mic. And I can do it and we'll call it presentation chat. And I can log into this meeting. Everyone who's a part of that conversation, there is the conversation there, will see that there's a meeting going on and can now join this meeting with me. Now, it might be that we don't need any of the meeting features, i.e. video and all the rest of it. We just want to talk. So once everyone's signed in, I can just click back to my file. I've still got my pop-up, so I can still, if people are on video, I can kind of see them as I'm working. But now we can be talking to each other and see each other while we're collaborating on this file. So way more fluid than anything that's kind of gone before it. Really easy to connect with anybody and everyone that you need to really, really quickly. With regards features that I've got in meetings, so obviously, a meeting for the students, fine, but you're going to be wanting to hold classes over Teams as well. And Teams as a video conferencing solution is really, really strong, incredibly secure. So one of the major concerns that a lot of people have with any video conferencing solution is its security. Microsoft is right up there from a security standpoint. It's used by lots of governmental organizations for exactly that reason, and a lot of educational bodies as well. In a meeting, I have lots of controls that I've got access to. So obviously I can turn my video on and off, I can mute myself, I can mute anybody else in this meeting as well. I can share my screen. So if I wanted to, I could share a PowerPoint presentation, I could share a desktop window, I could share Microsoft Whiteboard, which is a digital whiteboard. So if I wanted to use Whiteboard as essentially a virtual whiteboard, then I can, and everyone in the meeting will be able to see that and interact with it as well. So lots of options with regards to how I share. I can give people control of my screen, or I can take control of someone else's screen as well. So if I'm working with someone on a project and they're like, oh, I'm not quite sure how to do this, they can share their screen. I can take control of their mouse and I can kind of be like, well, you just need to move this over here, or you need to do this, or you need to click here, or whatever it may be. I've got lots of extra options under this these 3-dot ellipsis. So my PC doesn't support this, so it's not here, but I can blur my background. So if I had my video on and I'm somewhere messy, then I can blur the background so no one can see that, or I can customize the background so it can look like pretty much any environment I want. I can record the meeting. So if I'm a teacher holding a class, then I might decide, well, I'm going to record all my classes. And what that means is that it means those classes are going to be accessible to all the students forevermore. And even more cleverly, it will auto transcribe that class as well. So if a student missed it, or just wants to go back to it because they're doing their homework and they kind of know it was mentioned in a class that happened on Thursday, but they can't quite remember where, then rather than watch the whole class again, they can do a keyword search of the transcript of the class and bring up the part of the video where that bit was mentioned and watch that bit over again. So you can create a really useful reference library just by recording your classes. And as I say, it'll transcribe all those automatically for you. A new feature is the ability to raise your hand. So if you've got a class with 30 students in, what you can do is mute them all and then just get them to raise their hand, and as and when you can turn their mic on and off so that they can put their hand up to ask a question, you turn their mic on so they ask it. So what this does is when they raise their hand, they'll be one of the top video feeds. So Teams up until recently could only support 4 video feeds. It can now support 9. And that is very soon going to increase to 49, which is what Zoom can do. So however many people you've got in here, you'll be able to see them, engage with them, and as I say, they can raise their hand at any time to ask a question. Got access to our conversation. So because I've started this meeting as part of a chat, then with that chat has followed me. So if I add to it here, it will add to the overall chat. If someone hasn't joined, then I can dial them from here as well to get them to join. So if I know that one of the students isn't in yet, then I can give them a G up by ringing them from here, and it will dial them into the conference. They still have to accept that call, but much more likely to get them if they just forgot that it's going on. So loads of functionality that I've got. If I record this meeting or this class, then it will appear, I can have it linked up here. So I can have all of my class recordings in a separate tab up at the top here that all the students can access kind of at will. Again, uneditable, so they can't change anything in there. But again, producing a really good reference library for them to go at, as well as just the content in Teams. All of this content is fully managed by you as a teacher. So you can change the settings so that students can't post anything offensive, can't post GIFs if you so wish, or stickers, or all that kind of other stuff that Teams has. You can set it so they can't delete their own messages or delete somebody else's, but you'll have full control. But what this means is, because this is all sort of there forevermore, is it becomes a searchable resource that people can really utilize. I think I'm about on time.
Share his.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So hope everybody's okay. Just a little bit of preamble. I only agreed to do this yesterday, so please bear with me. Let me just share my screen. Right. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen now? So, right. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So apologies, I've not had too much time to prepare for this, but I spoke to Natasha yesterday, and Natasha asked me to step in and help here. I was always very, very keen to help Digital Futures, but when Natasha mentioned this would be for secondary school teachers, this is really important to me. So a little bit of background about myself. So I'm a regional director at Zühlke. I've been working in IT for about 25 years, and I've got 21 years of working with in Agile projects. I've been working closely with Manchester Digital for the last 5 years. And as you can sort of, some people might guess, I did an O grade in computing, which is Scotland's education system. And I think I was the second year to do that particular course. So I'm really passionate about people learning about computer science. And that's my daughter, Kyla, there with me. Kyla is 16 and she's just done her GCSE mocks. She should have been obviously sitting her GCSEs just now, and she got 5 9s and 5 8s. So really proud of all the effort she put into her GCSE mocks there, and hopefully she does well when the awards come out. I'm also a bit of a geek, so I wrote my first computer programs when I was 9 years old. So I was very lucky that my dad got me into software development and bought us a Commodore 64. So that's a picture of me 9 years old meeting Colonel Oliver North from the randomly from the Iran-Contra affair. So yeah, I've been very passionate about computer science for a long time. So this presentation about Agile for teachers, I think the first question to ask is what is Agile? This is quite difficult to do as a webinar because you can't engage with the audience. So I'm assuming that most people don't really know too much about Agile, but very simply, Agile is all about adapting to change. I love the quote from W.E. Deming, who is a very famous engineer and statistician. It's not necessary to change. Survival isn't mandatory. And I think for me, working in software development, it's very important that you accept that change is going to happen. So when it comes to actual software delivery, Agile is very simply, again, it's about building the right thing and building the thing right. So what I've been asked to do is maybe just show and present some key Agile principles that might be relevant to teachers in their daily work. And it's something that you can start to learn more about and sort of excite your students about. So some key values that are really important about Agile is feedback loops, constant, regular, short feedback loops. You know, it's all about doing something, finding out if it's okay, and then improving it if need be. Also about delivering early. You know, don't wait until the last minute. Deliver early, get some feedback, and deliver iteratively. And what's fundamental to that is very much continuous delivery, not big bang delivery, and working in multidisciplinary teams. You know, we don't work in silos. We can't work as a team of business analysts and a team of software developers, then a team of testers. We all have to work very, very closely together. And that collaborative way of working is so important. And I also want to touch on keeping the work visible, just making sure everybody knows what they should be doing. A very brief potted history of Agile. A lot of people think Agile is quite a new phenomenon. It's not really. It's born out of the lean manufacturing in the car industry in the early 1950s. So Agile and Agile principles have actually been with us for a long time. Agile sort of came to the fore more prominently in 2001 when the Agile Manifesto was written. And one of the most sort of preeminent books around Agile software development with Scrum started to get very popular around 2002 and the early noughties. So Agile certainly isn't a new way of working. It's been about for a long time. It's just it's new to a lot of people. Key question is why Agile? Well, but primarily in software delivery, most people were using a process called waterfall. And some of the key challenges with waterfall is you were working in sequential, contiguous periods of work by separate teams. So at a very, very high level, you might have a situation where the business analyst takes 6 months to write the requirements. Then it's actually given to the architects to design something for another 6 months. Then it's given to the developers to build the software for another 6 months, and then the testers to test for another 6 months. So 6 months worth of software development actually takes 2 years to get into production. And that just doesn't work. It's slow to market. It takes too long to validate if you're actually building the right thing. There's too many silos and contract hands-off between different teams. If you actually find a change in that verification block that goes right back to the requirements, that's very, very difficult and hard and expensive to change. And what you find is a lot of organizations were protecting themselves by contracts making change nearly impossible. As a consequence of this, you had a high rate of failure of IT systems, and the human cost of actually working on these projects wasn't very particularly nice. Around 2001, as it touched on in the history, the Agile Manifesto was created. And there's some key principles here, which is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And that's all about, working collaboratively rather than just following a particular process. Working software over comprehensive documentation sounds obvious, but actually the amount of people that focus on signed off contracts and signed off requirements documents rather than the actual working software is still unbelievable. Customer collaboration is so key, and to me the most important one is actually being able to accept and respond to change rather than just following a plan. These key principles are really important. And touching back on the Agile Manifesto, the history of Agile here, you have the Agile Manifesto around 2001, but one of the more common implementations of Agile is called Scrum. And Scrum was first identified as part of incremental product development back in 1986. They linked it back to the game of rugby, obviously, and the sort of close collaboration of everybody working for each other. And the analogies was key there. Scrum for software development started to form in 1995. And then we had this book, Agile Software Development, around 2002, which I'm just going to touch on very briefly, even though there are other methodologies and ways of delivering Agile. This highlights a few key ways of working. So at its very highest level, we have a product backlog, which is a list of requirements. We work ideally, in 1 or 2 week iterations called sprints. So rather than trying to build all the requirements at once, what we do is we take 1 or 2 weeks worth of requirements, and the team commit to estimating and delivering just that small increment. So rather than taking 6 months worth of requirements and trying to build them, we just take 1 or 2 weeks worth. We do focus on feedback loops. So that sprint planning is a feedback loop. We have daily stand-up meetings or scrum meetings where the full team will get together for 15 or 20 minutes just to discuss progress. And at the end of the iteration or sprint, we make sure that we have a show and tell and a retrospective. And these are further feedback loops to really gather insight. So the key feedback loops that we have is sprint planning, which is key. The daily stand-up, which is a very efficient way of including everybody in the team, a multidisciplinary collaborative team. And again, probably coming from education, a show and tell. So what this is really important is to make sure that the work that we commit to isn't just a 1 or 2 week time box, that we've actually designed something that can go into production, something that's demonstrable. So at the end of the 2 week iteration, we actually want to demonstrate real working software. And that's fundamental to what we do here. We also have the retrospective, which is all about a lessons learned meeting. And doing that regularly is so important for the team as a unit of delivery to be able to understand what's going well and where they need to improve. Very quickly, this diagram highlights the differences of doing small increments of work here on the right hand side versus big batches and big increments of work. The bigger the batch, the bigger the risk. You know, you don't find out until you deliver the whole lot if you've met user needs. Quality is low and you tend to get a last minute rush at the end. Whereas smaller batches, you're actually going to market really, really quickly. And it really helps make you focused. It makes it sustainable and a real focus on quality. So here is an example of a real project we did where for the first 2 weeks, we actually delivered working software as a prototype into production. By week 8, we'd actually delivered what we call a minimum viable product into live. So something that took a previous version of this product a year to get into production, we'd actually delivered a very basic but valuable version of that software in just 8 weeks, where you're meeting user needs and the users are actually able to use the system. You then have continuous delivery going forward. So here's really important, because the best feedback you're going to get is the feedback from your users. Iterative development is also very important, and this graphic shows you if you build something just incrementally, the users don't get it until the end. But if you take an iterative approach, this person is looking to get mobility, not a car. You know, you want to give them something around mobility that's quite simple, and then you build upon it as you go forward. Amazon is a great example of how their business model worked. Their first release just sold computer books. Their second release, or their second major version, just sold books itself. And now they are a global market in terms of TV, cloud computing, and a huge empire. So they have iteratively built up their service like that. Making the work visible is really, really important. We want to make sure that if we are working as a team, you tend to find that agile delivery teams do have a lot of screens and monitors that everybody can see, or whiteboards and post-it notes. This is a representation of the work in the backlog column that the team want to do. We want to make sure that we're limiting work in progress. You can only really do one thing at a time. And this is all about visualizing the work going from idea through to development and test into complete. And we want to make those units of work as small as possible. But as they build up, they become a testable product. Retrospectives, I've touched on very briefly. So at the end of every 1 or 2 week iteration, we do something simple like ask the whole team, what went well, what didn't go so well, what can we do differently? And there's lots of different ways of doing retrospectives. I like ones that gather that qualitative insight from the team, but something that also measures how people are feeling, because it can be quite stressful. So again, this is very much a quick lightning talk. I'm conscious I've got a minute to go. I want to make this relevant for yourselves. So one thing that you can do to get across working in small batches is the Pomodoro Technique. If you haven't heard of it, it's a way of, I use this personally for presentations, writing presentations or documents or proposals. And it's about splitting the work up into small chunks, giving yourself a little bit of a break, and it allows you to review what you've done rather than just go for one elongated working session. And another technique that I use personally outside of software delivery is called personal Kanban. And personal Kanban is my own personal task board, which allows me to, it's like a big to-do list, but it allows me to move the priority of things about. So here we've got my work in progress column, and there's only really one thing I can do at a time. but I'm building up a tick list, a to-do list for my day in progress, which is something that I can move and change and sort of reprioritize very, very quickly as I need to do so. So thank you very much. At the end of this presentation, I've got a couple of references and links for you to go and get some further information. So a very quick whistle-stop tour of Agile. Bang on time.
Thank you very much for that. That's very interesting. So I hope that was a useful introduction for people watching. I do believe that some of the Agile principles can help all of us with the way that we work, whether that might be organising students in the classroom or our approach to teaching and learning. One interesting point that I've heard from colleagues in education is that the pandemic has perhaps challenged the leadership style in schools, from a challenge of following to teachers being at the forefront of innovating in their classrooms. So if you are interested in finding out more, I'll include some links to further presentations, one by Kev and others, when sending out the recording of this email. So in the chat, does anyone have any questions for either of our speakers? I can see we've got one about virtual sprints and stand-ups. Perhaps that's one that you could answer, Kev, based on your own adaptation to virtual software delivery.
So that's something that we're adapting to really well. I think the key thing for ourselves is we did a lot of remote working prior to the full lockdown, and I think the quick answer is at Zühlke we use Teams. So Teams and other products like Zoom are really good ways to collaborate. So for one of my projects, we have a daily stand-up that's set in the diary. The key thing is it happens at the same time every single day. And we also have a mobile task board, a mobile whiteboard, a remote whiteboard, sorry, that allows the person to share the screen. And as a team, we just ask, we answer 3 key questions. So what have you done today? What have you done yesterday? What are you doing today? And do you have any blockers? And the key thing about the virtual stand-ups is to keep them succinct, keep them quick.
Perfect. Any other questions have come through, so perhaps we are going to end perfectly on time. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of our speakers for joining us. As I've mentioned, this will be emailed out to everyone after the event. I'll just tell you quickly about what we've got coming up in our next few webinars. So on the 30th of June, we're going to be doing an insight into fintech and user experience. That's both from a careers perspective and also hopefully providing some up-to-date examples for the curriculum. In that session, we're going to invite STEM ambassadors and STEM learning to hear more about their offer, including their free online CPD program. On the 15th of July, we've got a series of lightning talks from different industry experts and leaders. If there are any topics that you want to cover on that, whether that's software or different parts of digital and technology that you'd like a bit more information on, please do let me know or let Manchester Digital know, and we can organise that for you. After this, as mentioned, if you're going to join the networking, it's just on the left-hand side of the screen. If not, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you at another event soon. Thanks.
Bye.